It's easier to develop an identity when you don't have to walk away from one that you've already developed.
Good point. Hey man, happy Thursday. That was too peppy. Yeesh. I'm recording from home base again this week. Home base being my base of operations when I'm at home and at the office, rather than the home base, which is actually a chain of shops. No travel again this week because I actually have 4 days off in a row, and I plan on traveling tomorrow, which is a Friday, which is a bit late to be recording, so I'm recording here instead. Fun story, Dave. Move on. So it's much easier to develop a new identity if you don't have to walk away from one that you've already been labelled with. There's so much truth in those words that it's easier to redefine yourself if you're not currently tied down by the current you, as it were. Which I think is much harder to do these days when you have something like this and the internet. People hold you to a certain standard, and when you try to move away from that standard, it can be received poorly. And of course, while it's easy to blame the internet and YouTube and video and social media, there are other ways in which that applies as well. I have changed drastically from the person I was years ago. It was a whole different version of me. I'm someone 90% different compared to what I used to be. But as I learned recently, people I grew up with in school, my friendship group at the time, still have this version of me in their head that equates to that person who doesn't reflect the person I am at all now. And in a sense, I do feel bad that I am letting down these people I grew up with, because they're expecting this same version of Dave that they got on so well with to be there. And if they have a conversation with me now, they can just pick up where they left off 10, 15 years ago, and it's just not the case. I've become much more sarcastic and pessimistic. I'm more of a glass half empty than a glass half full kind of person. I approach things with a much more logical mindset these days, more than an emotional one, because it just helps solve problems, in my opinion. It's nice to be able to look into the past and see what you used to be and these links you used to have. I am a nostalgic person, but even my relationship with nostalgia has changed. And when I say that, I don't mean I'm no longer nostalgic. I am heavily nostalgic. I still love things I grew up with, but that's mostly the things I enjoy. But I used to have the issue where I would pine for the days that were better. While I do miss those days, I no longer pine after them. I just move forward. It's great that those happened and they helped define the person I am now and the relationships I have, but I don't dwell on it. I guess it's more of a mature outlook, but it's just the Dave I've become, and at the end of the day, it's the identity I have now. But it is hard to walk away from the old identity of me that people have in their heads, because they hold me to that standard I was back then. And the old version of me I hold to a high standard and a low standard both, because there are bits of it that were good, bits of it that were bad. Change is not always a bad thing. Change is just something that's going to happen whether we like it or not, and you just have to embrace that and go along with the change and make that change work for you. So well done. That one phrase has just caused me to refilm a video twice trying to articulate my thoughts. I'm still not sure if they're very articulate at all, but I came into this video not really knowing what to say, and it turns out I did say words that there are versions of me. This is the version I've got now that probably won't be the version of me in a year's time. And the main problem is the people I know from yesteryear still hold me to a different standard and different version of me, and it is difficult to walk away from that and tell them that I have changed. I'm still me, but I'm not that me, and you kind of need to let it go.